20-ZON-025. Location is 4700 North Post Road. We have Mr. Cauldron here today, who's representing the petitioner.
I am here.
Thank you. First of all, we're going to start with a swearing in of all of those who intend to testify. One moment for our clerk.
Ready.
And then if you could please just repeat after her.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. Answer yes or no. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. I do.
And the petitioners?
I do.
Okay, thank you.
So we've got all counselors on the line.
Yes. Next, the petitioner has 15 minutes to present his case.
Thank you. And good evening, President Chavis, council members, Ms. Walton, Joe Calderon, 11 South Meridian, Indianapolis, 46204, representing the petitioners in this matter. In the interest of full disclosure, and some of you probably heard through your counsel, my clients were originally Maria de la Luz Morena Mejia and Celso Gonzalez, who are local business and restaurant owners. And they had identified this site at 4700 Post Road, which has been a recreation, go-kart, putt-putt, that type of thing, center for many years. My clients had identified this site as a candidate for a proposed banquet facility. Unfortunately, due to the crisis, the COVID-19 crisis, their main business, the restaurant businesses, have obviously suffered greatly, and my clients have decided to not pursue that project. However, since we were so close to public hearing when they ultimately made their decision, and we had a favorable staff report coming to you from Department of Metropolitan Development, the owners, one of whom is present today, they are two sisters that own this property, would like to proceed forward and have you consider the rezoning request, even though there is no project currently proposed. And we understand the issues related to that. I've done this a long time, and we wanted to just point out some key things for you to consider tonight as you debate your recommendation. And that is, what we're really asking for just squares up the existing zoning that surrounds this property. If you look at the staff report that Larry had circulated to you, if you kind of go to the last page, you can see the zoning map, and you can see the DA portion, which is on the eastern half of the property, most of which is improved anyway. I think there's a little bit of unimproved area down towards 46th Street, but this property, even though it was zoned DA, had been operating off of some variances for many, many years. If you look to the north, you can see property that's zoned C5. You can see adjoining immediately to the west, C4, to the east, CF, which is part of the Monarch Beverage Complex, and then To the south, we do have church zoning, SU1 zoning, and next to that, some apartment zoning. So mostly this is a commercial corridor in the DA, which is frankly, it's short for dwelling agricultural. It's unzoned property. Should be zoned, and we think the match to C4 makes sense given the surrounding zoning. We anticipated that there might be certain land uses within C4 that might raise concerns. So we have tendered and through your council a list of commitments that would restrict or prohibit uses that might be not appropriate for the area or for the community at large. And amongst those, they are numbered or lettered 2A through I on our statement of commitments, and they include outdoor advertising, off-premises signs, i.e. billboards, any type of adult entertainment business, including adult motels, pawn shops, firearm sales, fireworks sales, ongoing as a primary business, so there wouldn't be any phantom fireworks, emergency shelter, substance abuse treatment facility, tattoo parlor, and nightclub or cabaret. And so we put those forth as additional
Do we have those?
restrictions that the property can never be used for those absent another public hearing. The owners have agreed to those, and we hope that that makes council feel better about this kind of prospective zoning. But what the reality is, and Lathan Brown, who is on the line and is the real estate agent, any use that would come to look at this property would have to go through a rezoning anyway. So this just helps the longtime owners facilitate a sale that undoubtedly would be a C4. And let's say something comes up and somebody proposes a senior living facility or something like that, they'd have to come anyway. So we do feel that this evening's request is appropriate given the surrounding land use. There have been no questions or concerns raised by anybody that we sent notice to. I've spoken with at least one of the counselors who had questions. Have been working closely with your council, and we hope you find that even though the banquet facility is no longer being contemplated, that the request makes sense tonight. I'll be quiet and listen to questions or comments from the council, and I don't know if Latham or Ms. Michler have anything else to add.
At this time, I don't have anything to add.
Okay, I'll open it up to council members if they have any questions.
Madam President, if I may.
Yes, Councilor Wells?
Yeah, I believe this is in my district as well. The owners that are seeking this petition are the same ones that operated the establishment prior to closing. Would that be correct?
I think that the establishment was a tenant.
Was a tenant. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do the structures that are there now are under this zoning? The zoning wouldn't have anything to do with the structures as far as any of these structures would be removed or tore down or anything?
Well, that would depend on an ultimate end user, I suppose. Could somebody come and want to operate a recreational facility? It's possible. It's not highly likely. But the structures Probably the building might remain. Some of the other improvements are, kind of single purpose and would likely not remain.
I see. Does in this zoning that you're seeking, does that not also accommodate for like a used car lot as well?
Does not. Vehicle sales are C5 uses. So basically what we're asking for is, since half the property is already zoned C4, we're just asking the other half, the DA half, be zoned to match that. But it does not permit vehicle sales.
Okay. The property that, the agricultural part, is it not the part that borders the pet cemetery, or do you know?
It does border the pet cemetery and borders the Monarch beverage facility. So it is the east half of the property, if you will.
And the lady, I can't remember her last name, her first name is B, that owns that pet cemetery. She was sent notice of this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Notices went out, 2 ownership deeds, 660 feet, counselors, neighborhood organizations, etc.
And so, Mr. Caldron, in all fairness, the notices would have went out with the intent of the facility being utilized as a banquet facility, correct?
Well, it says to the C4 district, provide for C4 commercial uses, including but not limited to a reception banquet hall facility. So it would have had that as a potential use. We never sent out, because my client never got to the point where he had architectural plans or even a site plan, just because we filed March 5th. And of course, the world changed about a week later. And so we never really sent out anything that would have tricked the public into thinking they were going to get a facility that looked like something different. There was nothing that was sent that was specific to that facility.
But the document that you sent out, this is Counselor Denny, did specifically name banquet hall, reception hall in the notice that you sent?
Yeah, it does. It did reference that, but that was just a particular planned use. It doesn't preclude anything else. So.
And I would just follow that up. I think I'm jumping back and forth between emails here, so I apologize if I say this incorrectly, but I think the staff report does mention a banquet facility, does it not? And I see what you're talking about. In the staff report, it says including but not limited to reception banquet hall facility.
Yeah.
Was the recommendation, in your opinion, do you feel that it was based mostly on the banquet hall facility or the zoning section of that in that report?
Well, I think that the staff report talks about the overall request being consistent with the zoning that's in place. The staff report did mention that the comprehensive plan calls for this property to be office commercial typology, which would be typically a lesser category than C4. But given the fact that the zoning in place includes C4, C5, and CS, staff didn't have an issue with it. And in fact, didn't recommend any restrictions whatsoever. It was really the owner and I, and then subsequent conversations with your counsel that put forth the restriction, because we want to be respectful of what the city's goals are here, but mindful also of the reality of what the property is zoned for and has been used for.
So this is Counselor
Madam President.
Chavis. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
I didn't hear if anybody from Larry's office was on this call or there.
Yes, Larry's on.
Okay. This is a question for Larry. Larry, would your department likely would have approved this without any of these conditions and just with the petitioner just asking for a request to go from one zoning category to the other?
We didn't see the commitments until today, and we didn't ask for any and hadn't proposed any. And as was indicated, the existing use is a C4 use, and given that it's been developed that way for over 30 years as a C4 use, we felt this was appropriate to consolidate this site into a C4 district. And again, considering the zoning around it, C5 and C4 to the north and CS to the east.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So this is Counselor Chavis. I don't have any issue with the zoning request itself. I am a little concerned that, there's no development plan. That is an area of our city that, there's opportunity for community and economic development. And I think, what goes at that property location is important, understanding, how that might help economic development in our city and our community as a whole. So that's where I struggle with the request.
Madam President,
Yes, Counselor Whitfield, then Counselor Rusamoroff.
thank you.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you, Madam President, for allowing me to speak. I have the same concern in regards to the availability and the appropriateness of us using or switching or moving that zoning to the C4. Being new to the council, one of the questions I have is if anyone can explain to us the history of how a parcel of land
Left the conference.
has been C4 and agricultural. That's my question. I don't know if anyone heard it. I could repeat it if need be.
Yes, and if everybody could please go on mute because we're picking up some background noise.
Does Larry want to weigh in on the history of why that parcel is split zoned, or do you want Joe Calderon to explain to the best of his ability?
Thank you.
Either one is fine.
Yeah. Well, I can answer. I mean, as best as I know. I mean, basically, this site was a farm field into the middle '80s, and then when this was initially developed, they decided to apply for variance. They decided to apply for variances in 1985 to develop this facility out there, and they've applied for variances ever since, and so it just never was brought to the forefront as being rezoned, and only the strip along Post Road had been rezoned long before, but the rest of it never was.
Okay, thank you.
Madam President, this is Councilor Rusamara.
Yes.
I would like to ask a question of the petitioner, if I may.
Yes, absolutely.
Mr. Calderon, I understand and have received the list of requested commitments of prohibited uses. However, I also understand one of those requested prohibited uses, that being a liquor store, was not in agreement. Is that correct? Has that changed, please?
Well, I had replied to your counsel that I wanted to see if liquor store could remain a permitted use because it's a regulated issue anyway. In other words, if there's a permit that's applied for, that the city would certainly understand and have a right to participate in that part of the process. That being said, if the owner is here on the call, Ms. Michler, and she agrees to add liquor store as a prohibited use, I don't have there's no planned liquor store. I don't have a particular problem. I just felt that liquor stores were regulated enough, and if they're operated appropriately, I didn't see that as potentially problematic to the community.
Thank you for that information.
Madam President, this is Council Attorney. May I ask Mr. Calderon a legal question?
Absolutely.
Joe, this is Chris. If I want to get clear something here on the point that Councilor Zamora made. If, for example, this P4 designation got approved for the entire parcel, and in the future, the property was purchased by an entity that wanted to put in a liquor store or another type of entity that would need an alcohol permit, like a lodge or some kind of gathering place. I understand that you are saying that that permit would have to have another regulatory process, but that's a state process, is it not? That is not something that would be a decision of the city of Lawrence to grant or not.
I think that all liquor permitting goes through the county and then to the state. So there is a local element to that process, where if there was, and most of it is based on bad actor kind of operations, so we don't know. There might be a scenario where operator A has a good reputation and the city would be fine and not object, and operator B might not be. So I do feel like there would be local ability to for the city to participate in that.
But they are not the decision maker, correct? They would be a participant.
The county says no, then it can be appealed, and the state ultimately has the say-so. You are correct.
Okay.
It's based on population, Chris.
Okay, yeah, that's outside my area. But really, the thrust of my question is also, Joe, if this were to go forward and the property is later developed for a use that is permitted and not one that you've designated as restricted, would it ever come back to the Lawrence Council?
No, not unless they were asking the council for assistance, economic development assistance. It could come back to the Lawrence Board of Zoning Appeals if there was some development standards, or I suppose it could come back to the council by and through DMD staff, for specific development plan. But this typically a C4 development plan.
But that would be highly unlikely, right? that would be highly unlikely that it would come back to us.
You know, I suppose we could bring it back by commitment if that's what the council wanted.
I would like to request that. That would make me feel a lot better about this. Yes, Councilor Giles has a comment. Yes, Councilor Giles?
Yes, I am very, very concerned with the logic here. Property, I agree with my fellow council who are concerned about the development in the area. Don't want to miss an opportunity. What I don't understand is meeting if we are prepared to say no adult facility there.
I can't hear his question.
And then but then you are fighting or advocating for the ability for it to be potentially a liquor store. But yet, I noticed that in the provisions, it says no drug treatment facility. And for that, I'll be honest, very turned off. And even though that is not my district is across the street. And my district needs a drug facility or alcohol treatment facility or mental health facility more than it does a liquor store. And
Okay.
I'll leave it at that.
So I'm not sure that they heard any of your comments, so I'm just going to sort of summarize it.
Please summarize.
So Councilor Giles is concerned about some of the restrictions, i.e., not having a treatment facility, having a treatment facility as a prohibition, but not having a liquor store, based on the fact that that property is located adjacent to his district, and understanding some of the needs of that community. He has concerns about that. So I think if the property owner would be agreeable to add to the commitments to come back to the council once there is a buyer and a development plan or site plan, he would be in support.
Exactly.
Any other counselors before we move? And we'll have another opportunity. So why don't we just stop right here for a moment? And are there any remonstrators? Remonstrators have 15 minutes to present their opposition or objections. Okay, hearing none, we're going to move forward to staff comments on behalf of Department of Metropolitan Development. Mr. Caldwell, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. This is Larry Calloway from the Department of Metropolitan Development. As the staff report indicates, we do support the petition, although it does not comply with the comprehensive plan, which recommends office commercial, which is a C1 district. However, in looking at the history of the site, as I indicated before, it's been developed for indoor, outdoor, commercial recreation uses since the late 80s, which is a C4 use. The districts to the north is C5, to the west there's also C4, there's CS to the east, which does have some gardening activities, but it's part of the Monarch Beverage property. To the south, there is a church use, and to the south west is residential uses. But for the most part, the surrounding uses are the moderate to heavy commercial uses, and so therefore we felt it was a reasonable proposal to consolidate the zoning of this property all within the C4 district, instead of leaving it split zoned as it has been for the last several decades. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Okay, the floor is back open again for any council members that would like to ask any questions.
Madam President, this is Councilor Denning. I have a question, and I'm not sure I'm going to phrase this correctly, so just kind of follow me here, I guess. You mentioned the garden that's there, that's Lawrence Community Garden, and they operate numerous youth programs in association with that. And then the church zone below that, they also run a school, a charter school there. So is there and I don't know the correct term, a school zone or some type of bleed over into this where there is restrictions because of so many youth programs in that corner?
No, there wouldn't be any real restrictions. Most of the restrictions in the ordinance, when they are, like for example, a liquor store, apply to properties that are directly adjacent and not across a street. So if there were residential zoning to the north or east, that could potentially impact the separation requirements for several uses like liquor stores, substance abuse treatment, and things like that have those kind of designations. But it wouldn't apply to those properties that were across the street at all.
So only to the north and the east, not to the south.
Right, and those,
or even the apartment complexes, the retirement home, those other places that are.
Right, they wouldn't be affected by those regulations. So those regulations basically would have no impact on the site, and that was one of the considerations, that there really isn't any adjacent, in terms of the ordinance, districts that would be hindered by this development or impacted by this proposal.
Okay, thank you.
And I do need to read into the record email comments that we received from Scott Salisbury. And I would like to go ahead and read those on the record. He is the director of the Lawrence Utilities, so I want to read that. I did not realize I could comment remotely via email. I am not opposed to the rezoning of this parcel. My concern is that it be on the record that there is a known sanitary sewer surcharging issue in the public sewer main where this parcel presently connects to. In a surcharge condition, the building lateral may not function properly and there is potential for sewage backup. The Old Post Road Rec Center had a sanitary sewer issues from time to time, but I do not have any specific details. My concern in putting in a business like a banquet/reception hall is that there will be a lot more use of the restroom with this type of business. And in a surcharge event, the sewer line could be overwhelmed and not function properly. This could result in business problems for the owner/operator of the facility. If someone hired the hall out and they could not use it, this would be a problem. While a backflow preventer can be installed on the building lateral, these devices do not always work if not properly maintained. Also, while they can prevent sewage backing up from the city main into the structure when the valve closes, you also cannot use the facilities until the sewer surcharge condition is over and a flow in the public main is back to normal. We also do not know the condition of the existing building lateral pipe, whether or not it has any condition issues that may contribute to problems or be undersized or proposed new usage. However, this is a developer-owner issue and should not affect the zoning matter. Lawrence Utilities has been looking at a permanent solution for this problem, but so far it has eluded us. We are continuing to seek a permanent solution. Thanks, Scott Salisbury. Okay. Any other questions?
Madam President, this is Councilor Wissamara with one additional request of any commitments that might be proposed, which would include a plasma blood center that would also be permitted under C4 zoning, if that might be considered as part of a prohibited use for this site if it were to be approved for C4 zoning. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I am going to call for a brief recess so that Mr. Cauldron has an opportunity to speak with his clients. We will take a 5-minute recess and resume. I'm sorry, we're going to make that 10 minutes, and we're going to resume at 6:20.
Very good. Thank you. We'll dial back in at 6:20.
Thank you. Okay, so next we have the petitioner has 5 minutes for rebuttal in closing statement.
Thank you. We appreciate the short recess. I spoke with the owners, and they are agreeable to adding liquor store and blood plasma center as prohibited uses. And they are agreeable to adding to the commitment the submission of a site plan to the Lawrence City Council for approval prior to obtaining any improvement location permit.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Liquor store, and what else did he say?
Remonstrators now have 5 minutes for rebuttal and for closing statement. There were no remonstrators. So any final questions from council members before we cast our roll call vote?
Okay, Madam President, I have.
Okay, Councilor Freeman?
Okay, it looks like the problem with the deed hasn't been corrected. Is there a problem with that, dealing with the legal description, with the meets and bounds?
We amended the legal description and ran it through the city of Indianapolis, and it was signed off on last month sometime, Councilor Freeman. I know that the deeds were somewhat confusing because there's been a taking and other parcelizations over the years, but I think that the legal description that was amended probably a month or so ago now should be okay.
Do you know who signed off on that?
I do. Larry, who, remind me who's the department?
Yes, I remember that situation, and that our GIS specialist mapped the legal and said it was fine, and she actually used to work for the assessor's office, so she's aware of how that works. Now, whether the assessor's office has got that information and updated their information, that I don't know, but the legal that we got was corrected and was fine.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other counselors?
Sure.
Madam President, just to clarify, so we're adding the ones that Councilor Cauldron acknowledged to the list that we got earlier, the statement of commitment?
Yes.
We're adding
Okay.
a liquor store and
Liquor store and plasma center, and a commitment to come back to the full council with a site and development plan when there is a potential buyer.
submission
or
of site
development
plan.
that's
Submission
going to
of
take
site
place.
plan to the council.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
was plugging in my earphones when he said that, so I only caught part of it. Thank you for repeating that.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, we're going to go ahead and proceed with a roll call vote.
Okay, and this is to either vote to grant or to deny petition 2020-ZON 025. Councilor Chavis,
Grant?
Councilor Denny,
Councilor Denning?
Grant.
Councilor Freeman,
Grant?
Counselor Giles?
No.
Counselor Russ Morava?
I believe that was me. Councilor Samara, it was difficult to hear. I would grant per the submitted commitment.
You didn't turn those speakers on. Counselor Russell?
Grant?
Counselor Chevlot?
Yes.
Counselor Wells?
No.
Counselor Whitfield?
Counselor Whitfield?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear, grant.
7-2, the petition is granted.
7-2, the petition is granted. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
your
you.
time. The meeting is now adjourned.